Good morning. It feels like it's really loud. Is it really loud? You all okay with it? My name is Lee Clancy, and I welcome you to today's State of the City event sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Cedar Rapids and Marion. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization. Our membership do hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues and policies that keep our community, our state, and our nation strong. And the League welcomes all eligible voters, both men and women, to join. So if you're interested, please don't hesitate. This event is made possible through the help of our sponsors, the list of which is on your table. But I want to offer a huge thank you to Alliant Energy, Simmons Prime Moyer Bergman PLC, Mid-American Energy Company, Shuttleworth and Ingersoll PLC, HR Green Incorporated, Rockwell Collins, and one sponsor was inadvertently left off, Stanley Consultants. So please help me and join me in thanking them. Additionally, I would love to recognize each and every public official here today, but that's not possible because there's so many. They are from Cedar Rapids, the surrounding area, and even the state of Iowa. So for all of those public officials who are here, please rise and be recognized. As a former public official myself, I can only imagine all that you are having to deal with these days, and I thank you for your service to your communities, your counties, and your state. In the past years, the mayor has responded to questions after his or her remarks. This year, we will be handling questions a bit differently at the mayor's request. If you have a question for the mayor about anything regarding city business, please write it on a card and hand it to one of the league members circulating the room, or even leave it on your table. Your questions will be collected, and instead of being answered live here, they will be answered by the mayor in the next few days and will be posted on the city's website. If you need a card for a question, just raise your hand and a league member will bring one to you. When I was asked to moderate this year's State of the City, it was with the knowledge that this would be the Mayor Corbett's last one, as he had so announced last December. I took a look back at the mayor's career, one that has been as varied as it has been vibrant. He has sold insurance. He has owned an ice cream company. He served in the Iowa House for 7 terms, and as its speaker for 4 years. The area chamber called him back to Cedar Rapids, where he served as president and CEO. He then moved on to CRST, where he is currently a vice president. In the meantime, he has served 2 terms as the mayor of our fair city, at a time that has seen the city restored after our devastating 2008 flood. Now, it looks as though Mayor Corbett may be moving on again, unless today's surprise he has tempted us with is that he is indeed staying on. You know, it used to be that folks stayed in the same job for many years. My father was, my husband did. Like in my own career, Mayor Ron is what is called a job hopper. And that's not a bad thing at all. If you change jobs often, then you're always challenged with a lot to learn, and your learning curve stays high. People who work in a variety of positions with different companies and organizations have a much larger network than people who stay in one place for long periods of time. Job hoppers are many times higher performers because you simply cannot job hop successfully if you don't add value every place you go. And it takes a good deal of self-knowledge to know what you want to do next. Not only to know it, but to choose to go get it, rather than stay someplace that for the moment might seem safe to you and you are willing to take calculated risks. Our mayor has made a career of highly successful job hopping. So, whatever the mayor chooses to do next, I'm guessing he's going to be successful. With that in mind, it is my great privilege to introduce Mayor Ron Corbett.
Lindsay, thank you. This is really a deja vu moment for me. Many of you may not know this, but 16 years ago this month, I had announced I was leaving the Iowa legislature and stepping down as Speaker of the House to move back to Cedar Rapids and raise my family full time, and I took that job at the Chamber of Commerce. And when I walked in to that Chamber of Boardroom, Nancy was there to greet me and welcome me back to Cedar Rapids. And now here you are, 16 years later, introducing me as the mayor for my final State of the City. Thank you, Mayor. We actually have a lot of mayors here. We have former Mayor Pete is here from Cedar Rapids. We have former Mayor Robinson from Marion is here. We have Mayor Bennett from Hiawatha, Mayor Hiawatha is here. The place is packed with mayors. Even my dad, he's a former mayor of Fairview, Pennsylvania. Then the rest of the room is all running for mayor next year. Cedar Rapids. As we did, I want to thank all the elected officials from all the cities and counties that are here. It is a little more challenging to be an elected official in today's day and age. A special thank you to the League of Women Voters. This really is their event, and it's an honor each and every year for me to attend and speak. And it's a long-time tradition for mayors to attend this event and speak on behalf of the city to the state of the city of West. I want to thank Gloria Frost. She's been doing this for 20-some years, and I pushed a little bit back on the events over the years, but the League's been very cooperative, and I want a special thank you to the League. To my city council, those I serve with currently, and those that I've served with over the last 8 years, thank you. We've been a team, and it's been a great team. The community has moved forward beyond many people's expectations. But when I hear from people about Cedar Rapids and their satisfaction with the community, they don't just talk about where Cedar Rapids was after the flood of 2008 and where we are today. They really appreciate the council and the fact that on a daily basis, drama isn't played out in the Cedar Rapids paper or the media. Like we see now in Washington, D.C., drama on steroids, and we see that now at the state legislature, but we don't see it here locally, and the council never got into pettiness and really kept their eyes focused on the big picture, so thank you, council. To the city manager, Jeff Pomerantz. Jeff, thank you for leaving the comfort. Jeff left the comfort of West Des Moines. West Des Moines was a thriving suburb of Des Moines, tremendous growth and development in that community, and he left the comfort of West Des Moines to the challenge, take on the challenge here in Cedar Rapids. And Jeff has personally done that, but not only that, he's built this team, this great team of people, management team, and many of them are here today, and all the way through the ranks of the employees here in the city of Cedar Rapids. When you factor out some of the part-time people, we got about 1,300 people that work in the city, and our town's about 130,000 people. So about 1% of the people are
working on a day-to-day basis, and they're led by Jeff Pomerantz. And so, Jeff, thank you for your leadership and for your friendship. Thank you very much. Monday, I was up in Pocahontas. I don't know if any of you have been up to Pokey. I had a chance to speak to a Rotary Club, and it was a holiday. 400-mile round trip all the way up to Pocahontas. And the number of people that showed up at the speech were 7. And today there's 700. But I've always believed that every person has a voice, whether it's a small group of 7 or a larger group of 700. I want to thank you for all the ideas and support that you've given me over the last 8 years. And I'd even thank you for all the unsolicited criticism that has oftentimes come my way over the last 8 years. But it really is a genuine privilege to be your mayor. If you have ever talked to someone that's been on a mission trip, and before they go on that mission trip, they often say, I'm going to build a home. I'm going to be on a mission trip and I'm going to build a school. Or when I go on this mission trip, we're going to build a hospital. Or maybe they're on this mission trip to teach English or dig a well. And they talk about what they're going to do before they go on that mission trip. And then they come back. And you know what they do then? They talk about the people that they met. They talk about the experience that they had. And oftentimes they say it's life-changing for them. And they often will say these words, I got more out of that than I put in. That's the feeling I have as your mayor, that I've gotten much more out of this experience than I ever put in. And it's made me a better person. So thank you. Thank you, Kurt. And most of my State of the City speeches over the years, I've had a little bit of a pattern to them. Oftentimes I find inspiration in lyrics from songs, and I've taken that inspiration of their lyrics and tried to put that in a message to you as I share each and every year. And then at the end, I end with a challenge. And sometimes that challenge is personal in nature. Well, I'm into this pattern so much now that people 2 and 3 weeks before the speech say, what song are you going to use for your speech? So I'm in a little bit of a rut, all right? And I don't like being in a rut, so we're going to flip things around this year. I'm going to start with the challenge, and then we'll end with the big surprise, okay? Life is full of lessons, and some lessons come easily. Some lessons are hard to learn because they come through maybe our experience with some tragic event or some circumstance. And those lessons, they tend to stay with us longer. But no matter how we learn these lessons, whether they're easy lessons or difficult lessons, they shape us. They shape us as individuals, and we oftentimes lead our lives based on these lessons that we've learned. Communities can learn lessons also. And as I look back over the last 8 years, I think Cedar Rapids has learned some lessons. And I believe that these lessons that we've learned should be part of our community memory. So the challenge is, as we look forward over the next 5, 10, 15 years, if we're able to remember these lessons that we've learned. If we do, I think Cedar Rapids is always going to be in a good place. I think there are 4 principal lessons that we've learned, and I challenge all of us to remember them. Lesson number 1, you need to get things done. All of us in our lives have what we call a to-do list. And we'll get up in the morning and we'll check our to-do list. And we'll go about our day trying to accomplish the items on our to-do list. But if we don't take action, nothing ever gets done. And that to-do list becomes just a worthless piece of paper. But on the other hand, when we do get things done, we feel good about it. And sometimes, depending on the significance of the accomplishment, we celebrate a little bit. Maybe it could be just something simple as a high five or a fist bump. But sometimes, maybe the celebration is a toast over a glass of wine because we accomplished something and we got something done. On the other hand, when we don't, and we don't get things done, our to-do list, we start to not feel good about our lives. See, cities are the same way. Cities have to have to-do list. Now, in cities, sometimes it's a little more challenging to accomplish the to-do list. One, you have to build up coalitions. You have to reach out and bring people together. And sometimes there's a change in administration, and one administration may have some different priorities on their to-do list than another. So sometimes the to-do list changes. But nonetheless, you have to get things done in a community. To do nothing is just a front row seat to watching decay and decline. I think Cedar Rapids has learned this lesson very, very well. We've accomplished so much over the last 8 years. This complex, for example, the hotel, the arena, and the convention center. This was built in 1978, back when Don Canny was our mayor. The ballroom itself was looking very tired, and people weren't renting the facility out anymore because it had lost its luster. And the hotel ownership changed hands from one out-of-state real estate company to another real estate company to another real estate company. And nobody was really putting any investment into the property. And it was becoming a blemish in our town. So we recognized this problem, but we really didn't do anything about it. It wasn't until the flood of 2008 that we were able to step in. And now we have a different circumstance. Today we have a completely renovated DoubleTree hotel. The arena is much larger, has more seats, and we can have more concerts and provide more entertainment. And we also have great meeting spaces, just like this one that we're in to hold the conventions. So the hotel and the arena and the convention center now have spurred additional growth in Cedar Rapids. And I could say the same thing about any project that's been completed over the last several years. And there are a lot of them. The New Bow Market, Kingston Village, the McGrath Amphitheater, just to name a few, but I chose this facility. And it doesn't mean that our to-do list is done. We still have a lot on our to-do list. Cedar Lake, the Sleeping Giant Bridge. But a to-do list for a community is good. But sometimes in our lives, if we get too much on our to-do list, we can become a little overwhelmed. I bet there are a few of you right now that maybe have some home improvement projects at your place that aren't just quite done. You didn't finish them. I graduated from Cornell College. Cornell table, wave, guys. There you go. I graduated from Cornell College, and Cornell has a unique structure to their school schedule. See, the Cornell students spend 3.5 weeks studying just one subject at a time. It's a very intense focus, which allows the students to immerse themselves completely in the topic and not be distracted by other things. Studying under this approach taught me a valuable life lesson. It taught me to stay focused, what needed to be done. It didn't matter whether I liked the professor or if I even found the subject matter interesting. And I couldn't put off my studies to the end of the semester because there was no end. I had to work through my challenges, stick to the matter, and drive to the finish line to get my work done. And this lesson has stayed with me over the years in my adult life, and one that I've tried to apply to our city to-do list. Some of our projects have been easy or simple, but most of our projects have been complex, lengthy, and required focus and determination to complete. We could have been overwhelmed. We could have been distracted and left projects unfinished, but we didn't. We persevered and got things done. And as a community, we feel good. And when you don't get things done, especially as it relates to buildings, abandoned buildings and properties, they become eyesores or monuments to decay. And if they're not given any attention, actually the local citizens stop paying attention to them and they end up blending in to the landscape. In recent months, I've been traveling around the state of Iowa, and I drive through some towns, and I see old, dilapidated, or abandoned buildings. And I ask myself, why aren't they doing something about it? And then I think, do we have visitors that come through Cedar Rapids and say the same thing about us? Why aren't we doing something about a building or an area that's deteriorating? Do they ask the same thing? Who are these city leaders? Why aren't they doing something about it? That's what they would be saying right now about this complex had we not tackled this project. It would have become one of our monuments to decay. And this progress that we have makes us feel good about Cedar Rapids. So that's lesson number 1. Get things done. All right? Lesson number 2. Lesson number 2. People are the heart and soul of a community. Business is the lifeblood. Business create jobs. With jobs, you have payroll. With payroll, people purchase homes and goods and services in your community. With jobs, you have property taxes from homes, from businesses that support government and schools. With businesses, sometimes you have sponsorship, cultural events, entertainment events, community events. Business community is the economic engine of a community. And there are consequences when governments don't recognize the importance of the business community. Over time, governments tend to grow. They become more and more bureaucratic. One department adds some rules, and then another department adds some rules, and so on and so on. And these incrementally accumulate and make it hard, difficult to operate a business. Cedar Rapids was in this condition, and in many ways, we were closed for business. And really why we reached out to you, Mr. Pomerantz, to move to Cedar Rapids and help us change that. Because of this feeling of being closed for business, businesses were leaving Cedar Rapids. They were moving to surrounding communities, communities that were smaller, they were more nimble. They could respond to requests for information than Cedar Rapids could. We had to change this, and we did. Do you know when I first ran for mayor, the city council actually passed a moratorium on growth and development out at Westdale Mall. Now, guys, there wasn't anything going on out there anyway, so you didn't need to pass the moratorium. You know, the mall at its highest value was $29.7 million in 1998. Then Coleridge Mall opened, and the Westdale Mall continued to drop each and every year without any investment in the property. It got down to $4.5 million. Imagine if you had a salary of $29,000 and it dropped to $4. That would be a significant loss of income. That's what happened to the mall. At $4.5 million, the mall was in sad shape. And when you walked through it, most of the stores were vacant. Now, all the mall walkers, they kind of liked it. It was a lot easier taking their walk. They weren't dodging shoppers. But the mall walkers were walking, not shopping, and the mall continued to decline. Well, we wanted to change that by practicing lesson number 1, get things done. And we reached out to a developer, John Frew, and we reached out to a local real estate company, Scott Byers, and we asked them to help us bring the property back to life. And we created a public-private partnership. Now, to me, being open for business does not mean that you open the city checkbook and give the business everything they want. There has to be a benefit to the public. The public has to benefit, and the private sector has to benefit. When you have a deal that only the private sector benefits and the public doesn't, it begins to create resentment in the public towards the business community. And that creates unrest and anxiety from the community. Both parties have to benefit. There has to be balance. And I think in Cedar Rapids, we found that balance where both parties benefit, the public and the private sector. So for us, open for business works for everyone. On that Westdale project, we took some chances. But what's happened since we did? Almost $60 million has been invested in the property, and it will exceed that highest value back in 1998 when it was valued at $29.7 million. This really helps our community, but sometimes people ask me, well, how do I benefit from it, Mr. Mayor? Does it really matter that more jobs have been created? Full-time jobs, some part-time jobs? Does it really matter that maybe some high school kid is getting their first opportunity to join the working world? How are you personally benefiting from the Westdale Mall Revitalization Project? A couple of years ago, we passed a local option sales tax. This sales tax was designed to fix our streets. We call it paving for progress. And we're making progress on our paving for progress, and you'll see more of that progress here in a couple more months when all the cones come out. And then you'll be calling the mayor wondering how long this detour is going to be in place, or how come no one's working on this project on this beautiful sunny Friday afternoon. Here's how the rebuilding of Westdale has affected you personally. When we originally projected that Paving for Progress initiative, we projected $190 million over a 10-year period. Because of the increase in revenue from retail sales tax, in large part because of Westdale and other projects, there's going to be $205 million in that fund. That's $15 million more dollars that are going to be available to Cedar Rapids to fix potholes and reconstruct streets. So that's how you personally benefit. You won't be dodging as many potholes, and you won't have damage to your car. But being open for business is more than just offering incentive packages. In October, I issued the Gavel Challenge, and it was to encourage everyone to patronize all the businesses that were closed down during that flooding event in September. And it was really my attempt to help businesses recoup some of the lost revenue during that closure. That challenge led to many conversations. And one woman, a waitress, told me how much she appreciated the Gavel Challenge because she had lost a week's worth of pay during the flood. See, in her mind, it wasn't about the boss recouping some of the lost profits. It was to make up for her lost paycheck so she could put food on the table and buy clothes for her kids. See, it's about the people that work in all those businesses. That's how it works. The business community is the lifeblood of the community. It affects everyone, even that young waitress. And that's why we have to be open for business in our community. So lesson number 1, get things done. Lesson number 2, be open for business. Lesson number 3, don't throw in the towel. You know, life can bring us some hard times. And we have this little devil that sometimes sits on our shoulder and tells us we can't do something, encourages us to quit, encourages us to throw in the towel. It's too hard. It's too difficult. The rules tell us we can't do it. Obstacles are too many. The formula just won't allow it. We can't listen to him put doubts of uncertainty and doubt in our mind and tell us to give up and throw in the towel. There's going to be times in our lives and in our community when lesson number 1, getting things done, is going to be difficult. But we have to persevere and move forward. And I'm glad we did. After 2008, our homeowners, after the flood, we found out that the homeowners in Waterloo were getting 120% on their buyout. And in Iowa City, they were getting 110%. And in Cedar Rapids, we were getting 100%. We thought, well, our homeowners in the buyout program are getting shortchanged. And so we appealed the rule and we said, well, can we get 100%? And they said, no, you can't. So, well, how about 107? And they finally said yes to 107. We got an extra 7% for our homeowners to help with that cost of selling that flood-impacted house and moving to someplace different. We didn't throw in the towel. We also had a similar situation with our debate over duplication of benefits. For DOB, for most people, DOB means date of birth. But if you were a flood victim, DOB stood for duplication of benefits. After Hurricane Katrina, federal government put in some bureaucratic rules to help prevent fraud. And these rules were well intended, but they actually resulted in more and more complications for our flood victims. We had one government agency saying you could do this, and another government agency saying that you can't do this, but you can do this, and there was confusion. All our homeowners wanted was the ability to go buy some drywall and repair their house. And we appealed, and HUD showed some flexibility and clarification in the rules, and we end up prevailing. But what if we had just thrown in the towel at the beginning to not help out those homeowners? How about the Army Corps of Engineers decision? They lay out this flood plan for our community, and we're all anxious to see the Corps' plan, and they lay out a plan that does what? Protects only the east side of Cedar Rapids, not the west side. They left the west side completely vulnerable to flooding. That's not acceptable. We couldn't accept their decision. We're not going to protect one side of town and not the other. So we found a way, working with the state, to use state dollars to protect both the east side and the west side. There's been a few times over the last 8 years that little voice has been whispering in my ear, saying you'll never get the federal government flood protection. But I can't listen to him, and we can't listen to him. We have to keep working day after day, month after month, year after year to build flood protection. We need to protect our community. We can't give up, and we can't throw in the towel. And if you think flood protection's taking a long time, how about Highway 100? Mayor Clancy, this was a high priority when I started back in the chamber in 1999. It already had been on the drawing board for some years before that. And, knock on wood, 2018, that project will finally be completed. And you know how important this is to our community. Cedar Rapids is basically landlocked to the north and to the east. So over the next 100 years, Cedar Rapids has a chance to grow because we never threw in the towel or gave up on Highway 100. We've had many opportunities along the way to give up and throw in the towel. Cedar Rapids is what it is today because we didn't give up. Lesson number 1, get things done. Lesson number 2, be open for business. Lesson number 3, don't throw in the towel. And the fourth lesson, I graduated from Newton High School. Back in 1978, I was a young shaver playing football for the Newton Cardinals. Now, I'm not saying it was like Friday Night Lights in Texas, but it sure did feel like most of the town people would come to those games on Friday night, and the community really rallied around our football team. Junior Achievement had some student clubs at Newton, and one of the companies that I participated in, we made bumper stickers. And these bumper stickers said, honk if you have red pride. And we sold those bumper stickers for $1 a piece. We plastered them all over cars in Newton. Today, nearly 40 years later, on the water towers in Newton, they say red pride. And every time I see that, it reminds me of the value of community pride. We don't even have our name on our water towers here in Cedar Rapids. We're changing that. We're going to put our name on our water towers. Our welcome signs to our town, well, we had one, but it was a busted up piece of plywood. It was embarrassing coming in to the south side of town. And now we've got 2 beautiful welcome signs coming in to north and south of Cedar Rapids. We fixed up Collins Road and the entrance to Rockwall Collins. Why? Because Rockwall is our largest employer. They're recruiting people every day into Cedar Rapids, and we want to make this good impression of our town. Now, these may seem small and trivial, but they are really important parts of building community pride. In my State of the City address in 2014, I made reference to this ESPN radio show called Mike and Mike. It's a sports talk radio show. And during this show, Mike Golick, who was here in Cedar Rapids, his daughter had been at a sporting event down at the University of Iowa, and he was snowed in. Snowed in Cedar Rapids, and the other Mike, as part of the show, was asking people to call in and give advice on what Mike Golick could do while he was in Cedar Rapids. And I get a text message from a friend of mine in Colorado, and he says, your town's being trashed on the radio. I said, well, who's trashing my town? He says, your own citizens. See, this guy called up and he said, there's nothing to do in Cedar Rapids. And he also offered up that, distortion of our city slogan, the city of 5 seasons. He offered up that distortion, the city of 5 smells. And as a result of after that, I had a State of the City where I took out a proclamation and said that Cedar Rapids was no longer going to be known as the city of 5 smells if we ever were. You see, I'm not talking about little things that poke fun at ourselves or a funny little slogan on a ray gun t-shirt. I'm talking about an attitude that actually undermines a community. It's important for us to portray ourselves in the best way possible, and we should be teeming with pride in our community. And last September, if you don't think it makes a difference, last September, community pride was on full display. It was Wednesday afternoon, late in the afternoon, on the 21st of September, and I was on my way up to Mason City. I had to give a speech the next morning to a Rotary Club at 7 a.m. As I'm heading up north, the rain was just pouring down, cats and dogs. One of those rains where it's so bad that people pull off to the side of the road and wait it out. I sent a text message to our city manager, Jeff Pomerantz, and I asked him, it's raining, is our river behaving down in Cedar Rapids? And Jeff actually sent me a text message back. Now, I wasn't driving at the time. He sent me this text message back. We have a little yardstick measuring marker on the flood wall over by the Veterans Memorial Building. He sent me a picture. It says, the sun's shining, river looks good, all's well in Cedar Rapids. I finished my trip to Mason City and checked into a hotel, and the rain has continued to pour all night long. You just hear it pounding in the gutters. I didn't sleep a wink. I got up the next morning, showed up for my 7 a.m. Rotary Club, but all anybody could talk about was the 10 inches of rain that fell the night before. And then I got the call from Jeff. He says, we're in trouble. National Weather Service had just issued a flood warning for Cedar Rapids. I canceled all my meetings and started to head back. And as I'm driving back down to Cedar Rapids, I could see it. Every farm field was full, standing water. Every ditch was full. And I knew it was heading our way. Later that day, we held a press conference announcing evacuation plans. People were really kind of shocked. It was a sunny day. The river was low. And maybe some people thought we were alarmist. He said, well, it's not what's happening here today in Cedar Rapids. It's what happened up north. Then people went into action. I was laying there in my bed that night, and I whispered to myself the words, "Oh no, not again." And just like that, tears started flowing down the side of my face because I knew what was going to happen if we didn't hold the floodwaters back. Now, I don't know if you're religious or if you're spiritual, but I am. I cried out to God, what are we going to do? What can I say? And just like that, as if God was answering my prayers, flashbacks and images of the day just started flowing through my mind. The endless dump trucks hauling in tons and tons of sand. The people that just showed up at all the sandbagging locations. And then those that were moving their belongings to either higher ground or out. There's those images that I kept on seeing. And it gave me strength. You inspired me. See, each day then, as I stood before the podium to explain what needed to be done, I was able to do that because of you. A couple weeks after the flood, my son, Thomas, he's a Washington High School junior. Shout out to Wash, huh, Thomas? He asked me this question. He said, Papa, is a community a reflection of its leaders, or are leaders a reflection of a community? I first thought, what a profound question from a 17-year-old, and I was very proud of his question. I said, it's probably a little bit of both, son. Communities do reflect their leaders, and leaders reflect their community. Let me close with the story that I've told before. A man is walking down the street. It's hot. He comes across a stone cutter. And this stone cutter is just chipping away at this stone. And he's sweating. Chips are flying all over the place, and this guy is mad. He's yelling. He's screaming. He's using profanity. The man stops him and says, "What are you doing?" And the man responds with anger and profanity and says, "I'm cutting a stone. What's it look like I'm doing?" He continues down the road, and he comes across the second stone cutter. And this stone cutter, same condition. It's hot, sweating, chipping away. This guy's not so mad. He's just chipping. The guy stops him and says, "Sir, what are you doing?" And he says blandly, "I'm cutting some stone for some building. I'm just doing my job." Very disinterested. Keeps walking down the road, and he comes to the third stone cutter. Same conditions, hot and sweaty. This guy's chipping away, flying all over the place. But he's whistling, and he's singing. He's smiling. And the man stops him and says, "What are you doing?" And the man stops. He takes off his gloves, puts down his hammer and chisel, and he swells with pride. He says, "Thank you for asking. I'm building a cathedral." You have been the third stonecutter. You have built Cedar Rapids as if it were a cathedral. And that's why 10,000 people plus showed up last September to protect it and save it. That is the value of community pride and ownership. If we remember lesson number 1, get things done. Lesson number 2, be open for business. Lesson number 3, don't throw in the towel. And the most important lesson that I think, the value of community pride and ownership, if we don't forget these lessons, the state of our city, the state of our all-America city, the state of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, will always, always, always be bright. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, we got a little bit of time, but not much time for the surprise. I'm sorry. So I'm going to bring my band up, Crankshaft, Lenny, Glenn, Greg, Mitch, Dave's working sound. Here's the big surprise, everybody. You have given me the privilege of being your mayor. When you go into that voting booth and you fill that circle in, for me or any elected official, you are transferring your trust from you to me. And that means a lot. It means a lot to me. And so the only way that I can think about any possible way to really say thank you is a musical tribute to you, to the people of Cedar Rapids. So that's the big surprise, but the bigger surprise is I'm actually going to get behind the microphone and sing a song to you. Thank you for State of the City address. Thank you so much, League, and I hope the next mayor always continues that tradition. To my family, my dad, Harry, Anna, Thomas, Nicholas, Kurt, thank you for being with me and supporting me all my life, especially these times as mayors. All my friends, because friends really are family. JP, Jeff Pomerantz, we'll be ending our time here in about 10 more months, no longer be mayor, city manager, our time working together, but something tells me we're not done working together. Thank you, JP. Shalom, my friend. Shalom. To all the people of Cedar Rapids, I know it's a bit unusual, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to be your mayor, but especially here, sing now my new favorite song, Sweet Home, Cedar Rapids. Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Well, come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that same old place, our sweet home, Cedar Rapids. One more time, stand with me. Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Well, come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that same old place, our sweet home, Cedar Rapids. Thank you for your time, baby, Cedar Rapids.